This has been the Hanson Home Interactive Repair Show with Sean Hanson. Tune in next week when Sean brings more easy repairs for your home to the surface. Sean has over 40 years of repair experience and wants to share his knowledge with you. You can call his office to get personal attention at 561-234-9599 or call the show next week at 888-565-1470 and he will answer all questions on repairs for your home. Join us again next week for another exciting edition of the Hanson Home Interactive Repair Show. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to the Hallie Elise Show, featuring your host, empowerment psychic Hallie Elise. She is an author, psychic, and media personality, and has been listed as one of the top 100 psychics in America. Empowerment psychic Hallie Elise shares the spiritual, metaphysical, holistic, and magical powers of the universe. Follow Hallie on her website at HallieElise.com, and all her shows can be seen via live stream video. Now, here's your host, empowerment psychic Hallie Elise.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. Glad to see you. As you know, the Hallie Elise Show shares information about psychic phenomena, spirituality, holistic endeavors. We talk about things that are somewhat unusual as far as energy. By the same token, we'd like to share information about our community and individuals who work with making a difference in people's lives. And my guest this evening is actually a host at WNN and also at AMP2.TV. A little plug there for everybody. Tracy Marks. Her show is We Are the People, and she's going to share this evening with us as to how to take care of certain things that you might be stuck on and ways to investigate matters that normally you'd go, oh, well, just do it. It's nice to know where to go, who to call, what to look for when you have certain problems. So without further ado, let's say hi to Tracy. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Hallie. Thanks for inviting me on. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. I'm glad that you're here. So We Are the People. Tell everybody a little bit about what does We Are the People represent?
We Are the People represents us. It represents you and me, the people. We forget that we're the ones that are in control of our lives, of our government, and we get off track and we lose track. We Are the People was formed, it really started over the whole student loan situation. I mean, that's my endeavor, is to get this whole situation fixed.
Endeavor, I thought it was a pet peeve.
Yeah, call it what you will. It kind of goes there too. But it's a very important time coming up. We've got elections coming up in November, but more importantly, we've got the big elections coming up in 2016. So We Are the People. I do focus on student loans and the industries that surround them. A lot on the for-profit industry. I'm not a big fan. A lot on Sally Mae and the banks, that kind of thing. But right now I'm searching for a way to reach out and help more people. I mean, it's one thing to talk about it. Elections are coming up, so it's all about talking about that kind of stuff. But, there does need to be more. I haven't quite got that all ironed out yet, but that's what I'm working on.
Okay, so then if somebody, because you brought up student loans, somebody has difficulty, they find that they've been paying on it for years and it seems like the interest rate is ridiculous and they really paid off the loan 10 years ago, but they're still being penalized and charged and they're a nervous wreck and they think it's ruining their credit. What do you suggest that they do? Where do they start to look to make a change?
Well, there's the information is all out there,
but
people get overwhelmed with it, and they don't actually find a lot of it. In all honesty, when I don't know what to do or who to call, I call the Attorney General. and they will give you a whole listing of everybody you need to call. The Department of Education is also a good one. I think in our endeavor, whether we're more spiritual or religious, we kind of tend to move away from these kind of subjects, because we want to be positive. And where is that line between being positive and doing something positive? It's not about just being positive in what you say. It's about doing something that's positive for the community.
Okay, so when you're talking about doing something positive for the community, how do you go about that? I mean, because obviously student loan is a very personal matter, and you have so many other areas that, well, when we talk about government, we all have our ideas of things. Some people want to throw a coup, which, by the way, I'm not suggesting. Other people talk about the right side, the left side, the blue side, the red side. As far as I'm concerned, I tend to stay away from politics. But let's say the average American who is, for instance, not working, who needs help. How do they go about even getting something like a section, I think it's Section 7 or Section 8, where they get assistance for their home? Somebody who needs to know that information, where do they find it?
Well, I'll tell you what, Facebook is actually a really good resource for a lot of that kind of stuff.
Really?
Believe it or not. When you have, there's so many groups there. Now, student loans specifically, there's several groups on Facebook. They all have a little bit of different culture. Some lean more right, some lean more left, some, But, again, if it's anything that has to do with, say, your utility, there's all types of resources out there. But when it becomes too confusing, the one thing I can tell you to do is really call the Attorney General, because what they're going to do is they're going to tell you exactly who to go to. They're going to give you exactly the right phone numbers. A lot of times they will call up for you. My son still doesn't have insurance, but when I ran into trouble with the government about getting his insurance, I literally could not get through to renew his insurance. Okay, part of it was a mistake on my part because I had done this so many times. I read too quickly. I missed something. Okay, so that put me behind. But then their stuff put me behind, and then they've made several different kinds of mistakes. All these different people are regulated, and your attorney general or state attorney are really the best ones to call when you don't know who else to call, because literally you can spend hours
trying to research and find out. Okay,
so
if I were to call the Attorney General, I just go Google it, I call 411. I mean, really, all kidding aside, for, let's say, the novice who doesn't know how to do any of this, and they're panicking, and they have issues, and they have questions, you're saying call the Attorney General, or, call the state's attorney's office. But even with the state's attorney's office, you could go through a myriad of people till you get to where you need to be. So what's the best approach on that?
Well, actually, I find that they are the ones that you go through the least with. It's a person that answers the phone, and they will take that extra time with you, and they'll give you the time to explain. I mean, you can just Google. I like Attorney General because that's everybody's Attorney General. The state attorney, and but they work pretty much the same way as far as when you call them and the kind of service they're giving you.
So you're not put on hold, and you're not sitting and waiting. So, for instance, if I had an issue with the school loan, or I had an issue with trying to figure out how to get financing or find a home if I was limited on funds, or find an Obamacare or whatever, I can call them and actually talk to a real person?
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, truly, it's amazing because...
And I've called them totally, oh my God, just on meltdown mode. And I've been like, oh, and I'm like over here, and about the student loans, and then my son's medical over here, and they're the ones that usually, they're like, wait a minute, and they take their time, and they will direct you. That's the one thing, is you're getting the right directions when you call them up.
Okay, that's awesome. So if somebody wants to find you and connect with you, obviously you go on right after me, so on Monday nights at 7 o'clock, you can find We Are the People on WNN. And what website do they find you at? Because I know I usually refer people to HallieElise.com, where I've got a live player. In addition to that, we are on so many other stations at different times replaying our programs. But if somebody specifically wants to watch you live, where do they find you?
They can find me at wearethepeople.tv. Of course, like you said, on WNN as
Right.
well, the radio. But yeah, you can actually video chat. That is my website. It's
Video
a work in
chat?
progress.
Okay, so
Yeah.
explain that. What's they get on and they just look at the chat thing and they click and they
Well,
see
They're
you?
watching. They're watching the show. They hear
Okay.
what's going on. Say
Okay.
they can't get through on the telephone.
Okay.
Video chat is an option, and there. What happens is my back group are monitoring the
Right.
computer, and they will pass the question forward. They'll read the question out, and then I'll address that on the air.
Nice.
So we hope to be, working with that a little bit more. We're going to start
Okay.
working with some students at FAU on the student loan issues.
Perfect.
And move on Mondays.
Okay, so the website again for them to find you?
We are thepeople.tv.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Because I just want to make sure they grab that. So it's your name.tv. Pretty easy.
Very easy.
Pretty easy. Okay, so right now, what is it that you feel most passionate about? And the reason I ask this is because I know you, and I know your heart goes out to a lot of different causes and a lot of different places.
It's hard to narrow it down.
You take care of the groups and organizations. I take care of the animals and the woo-woo stuff. So we've got bases
everybody's got
covered.
a, their
Everybody's
part
got
to
it
play.
in between. And yet, you had a friend of ours on, I believe it was last week, talking about her connection with youth and art and music. So you don't limit your focus to just political arena. You actually, again, are dipping into the community, making a difference, letting people have information. What can you share about that?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
It's a work in progress. I mean, it's a fine line to run the whole political spectrum and then try to bring something positive, because it doesn't feel like there's anything positive. I think the main thing I'd like to just pass on with that is they want you to think nothing is getting done, but we are getting things done. My big passion right now, something I'd really like to see happen, Sallie Mae is one of the biggest loan companies out there for student loans. They've had to pay a $97 million fine to the VA for the way they handle situations. Yet the Department of Education has decided to renew their contract. They're actually going to make more money this contract term than they did previously.
Interesting.
Despite all these different things that are happening. So, I would appreciate it if everyone would go to moveon.org and type in Fire Sallie Mae. There's a petition you'll find attached
I
to
love
that.
it, fire.
And please sign it. The government contract has already been given back to them, but I just refuse to accept that. And I'm very passionate about what is happening to the people that are trying to go and be educated and make this country a better place, only to end up slaves to the interest system.
Do you really think that's the direction that we're going in as far as slavery,
Well,
oppression?
I'll tell you what.
I mean, I don't mean to be facetious, but it's a strong word to use, slaves. And granted, there's that idea of being a slave to your job, or a slave to your home life, or a slave to any number of things. But when we're talking about government, the one thing that we've always had in the U.S. is freedom. And we are seeing changes, in some good and some not so good. So if you're looking at specifically Sallie Mae and looking at, like you said, slavery, what's really your
Debt
view on
slaves.
that?
I
You know
mean,
what?
we have
Hold that thought.
Okay.
We are going to take a quick break, and
All
then
right.
we'll come back and talk about slavery.
Bob, did you see Hallie Elise in the paper?
Who?
The empowerment psychic, Hallie Elise. They did a 2-page write-up. The columnist was enthralled. Hallie went right to an issue that she was dealing with. I'm looking at HallieElise.com right now.
What are you thinking? Should we schedule an appointment?
Matter of fact, yes. You have issues with Sue and me, my business. Take a look at her background. It's impressive, and she has decades of experience.
I want to put it on my iPad. What's her info?
Empowerment Psychic Hallie Elise. HallieElise.com. 561-755-2166.
Spell it.
HallieElise.com.
So it's HallieElise.com and 561-755-2166, right?
561-755-2166. That's it.
You're listening to Empowerment Psychic Hallie Elise, and she invites you to visit her website for more information about all that she does at HallieElise.com. Now, back to your host, Empowerment Psychic Hallie Elise.
You missed out. We were talking on the break about energies and how they affect things, and about how, when you're dealing with psychic energy, a lot of times you'll have little funny mishaps, like light bulbs bursting for no reason, or getting on the phone and the phone has a wait screen and won't let you dial out, or for some reason just dies, those types of things. So see, we haven't gotten away from that totally this evening. But before we went to break, we were talking with Tracy Marks from wearethepeople.tv, and also a host of the same show, We Are the People, here on WNN, and also AMP2.tv, and slavery in respect to Sally Mae, in respect to those types of businesses. So, Tracy, without ado, let's go back to the idea of oppression and slavery. Really, what is your interpretation of that?
It's an oppression and a slavery mentally, if nothing else. I mean, our government is not throwing us in prison, and we don't
Thankfully.
have the debt prisons anymore. However, I wonder where that's going to go. With the state of the country. I mean, so many people, especially in student loans. I mean, you look at the banking industry, you look at these politicians, and who is paying their bills. Okay, Sally Mae has donated, and I'm picking on Sally Mae. Yes, I am picking on Sally Mae. But there's plenty of other companies, big corporations out there, and they donate all this massive money to these campaigns.
Right.
Okay, now, how are these people, do you really think that they're going to be doing for us? Okay, now you have student loan debt. It's not bad enough that you have the debt. Now something happens. Now you're in trouble. Okay, you're picking on people with the least resources.
Correct. But don't you think if someone has a debt, that they should pay the debt or make some sort of attempt? I mean, because you do have the other side of it, where you have somebody who knows how to work the system. And we've all seen it where,
unfortunately,
somebody goes to, let's say, collect food stamps, and they're wearing a nameplate this big that's gold with diamonds, and they get into their Jaguar or, their newest Cadillac or what have you, and they've got 6 kids in tow, and they're pregnant, and food stamps,
see this firsthand.
So this is why I'm asking, because obviously within everything there is a balance, and I understand that idea of mental oppression and concern, and whether it's Sally Mae or another organization, if they're going after people who don't have resources, wouldn't it make more sense for those people to make some sort of arrangement, and Sally Mae to actually have some sort of arrangement available for them?
Well, that's the problem, is there's not enough. Now, the government loans are much better as far as being able to make arrangements. However, the interest still does accrue, not at the rate the private ones do. And the private ones, I mean, honestly, I'd rather be paying my government loans. I mean, my government is $16 trillion in debt. Who do I want to take care of?
Right.
But when you let your private loans go, they escalate at such a quick rate because of the compound interest. If they had simple interest, that we wouldn't be having this problem. But when a person can't afford to make a payment of $265, raising their payment to $695 doesn't make any sense.
No.
Okay, so now what happens is now they lose their house. I mean, it's just a downward spiral, and the interest, it was never set up to be like that. I mean, think back in the 1800s, they had the year of they had a jubilee every year,
right.
Every 7 years, excuse me. We've been doing jubilee things. The greats of our history have talked about usury and the detrimental effect it has on the economy. I mean, this is nothing new.
No, but by the same token, we still have some places here in the States where the usury laws are different. For instance, if you look at Las Vegas, you look at Delaware, there's a little bit more freedom there when it comes to businesses and the fees. So obviously that's different than education, but the idea that there are still some places. So you have to wonder, is it not set up that way so that a minute part of the populace is able to say, oh, here, I found this little gem, and I can go ahead and take care of myself and do what I need to do because it's different than what everybody else is doing. And I find even when it comes to, they say there's all sorts of things available as far as funds for single women with children or people in a particular situation, and yet you try to look for those funds, and it's virtually impossible to actually find it.
Which is why you have people charging for it.
Exactly.
And that's a
those
double-edged
books
sword
that you get
right there.
And a lot of times the material is out of date. So it comes down to, if you were to give somebody advice in respect to the best way to approach their life in managing their finances and dealing with the government, dealing with loans, what do you suggest?
I would definitely suggest conversation. I mean, a lot of people just hide, okay? And I can't say I blame them for that, because right now I'm not speaking with Sally Mae either. I mean, I've got to the point where they've lied to me so many times, and there's thousands of dollars on my bill that shouldn't be there, but I have no proof, and it's their word against mine. And, so you have a real funny line. Now, what they do is they'll try to talk you in to a payment, okay? And basically what that does, there's a statute of limitations on private loans, okay? There's not on government loans, but on the private loans there are. So, I mean, that usually starts at the time you go into default, okay? Now, every state is different, so you really need to do your research on these kind of things.
If you were to guide somebody, you would say, first off, know the laws of your state. And
Absolutely.
If you don't, call the Attorney General,
Absolutely.
right? Okay, because I'm going back to what you said before. Defer back to the Attorney General's office. And if they want to locate the Attorney General's office, they can pretty much call
911.
411. Actually, 411 is probably better. Well, 911, if you feel like you're choking on it, you need the paramedic to come rescue you or resuscitate you. But all kidding aside, so they could call 411, or they could, research it on the web to get that information. But they need to know literally what applies to them in that moment. And as you said, private is different versus the government. So they need to also know, are
what
their
type
loans,
of loans they have.
Right, exactly. Are they secured by the government? Is it secured privately? Is it half and half? What was it they got? Because really and truly, a lot of people, when they first take out loans to go to school, they're excited about school. They're happy they got a loan. They're really not thinking about where the source is coming from. They're not thinking about that interest. They're thinking when they're done,
make the money.
Exactly, they're going to just be able to pay it back. And
that's what I thought.
What's interesting is that little voice that's inside of all of our heads that drives us, that gives us information, too often it's ignored. And I'll give you an example. Somebody could be saying, I really want to do this and I need to borrow $200,000, and there's that little voice that goes, it's really not a good idea. See if you can do it a different way. And you totally ignore it and say, nope, this is what I'm doing. And then later you find out, oops, I should have listened. So I'm going to ask a funny question. How much of what we're talking about really could be enhanced or changed by somebody paying attention to that little inner voice?
Quite a bit, I'm sure, but sometimes it's years down the road before you realize that voice was there. It's like, what, I did have a thought about that. It takes time for it all to clear. But yeah, the way you surmised it is perfect. Definitely, the Attorney General will be able to tell you anywhere you need to go. Do not be afraid to call them. Get yourself educated. And again, you need to know whether you have private or federal loans. They are handled very, very differently. I'm still learning new things every day. But if you want to go to my Facebook page, it's We Are the People, Students for Liberty. When you go over to the files, there's all kinds of links to all different types of government sites and other sites.
So there's that information that I was asking about.
Yes, it's not on my website, but
but
I'm still trying
Facebook.
to pull it all together.
Okay.
But yes, that's We Are the People, Students for Liberty, and the files have a plethora of different links for you. And I'd also like to recommend Robert Applebaum's group, Student Loan Crisis.
Okay.
That's on Facebook, and they have a website as well. They have great information. They've got a lot of people that will answer questions right there.
Okay, so they'll get immediate gratification.
Pretty much.
I like immediate gratification.
Yeah, that's the most immediate.
We could go in a different realm there. Anyways,
yes.
Okay, so I just want to share with everybody who is coming on next so that they know to watch your show. It's We Are the People, and it's going to come on right after the Hallie Elise Show. Who do you have on this evening?
We have a gentleman named Todd Clapp. I've just recently met him through another friend of mine. Networking can be awesome sometimes.
There you go.
He is a graduate law student. He hasn't taken his bar yet, but he also had some student loan issues. He's going to tell us a little bit about his story, and then give you some pointers, exactly what you were asking me.
Wonderful.
So he'll give you some more
Wonderful.
pointers. Also, Jorge Estomba, my co-host, is back. So I haven't got to do a show with him in a while.
Okay, well, good. So We Are the People will be on at 7 p.m., which is coming up in a moment. Tracy, I'm so glad you could be here this evening.
Yes,
this is
thank
kind
you
of
for
nice to
inviting
kind of change it up a little bit. I want to share with everyone a reminder, which is the Psychic Gallery is next Monday. It is always the first Monday of the month, unless it's like Christmas or something like that, New Year's Eve, maybe not. There has been the occasion where we've changed the date. I believe, actually, it may be Labor Day, though, this next gallery, so I'll have to double check that, but it's the first Monday of the month. If you'd like to call in on the third Monday of the month to the show, if you want to make a note of the phone number, it's 888-565-1470, and that is the number here at the station. So the third week of the month, we always give psychic information, so you can call in and go, hey, I have a question, or this is going on in my life, can you give me some insight? And we take care of that. You can find me on Facebook, and I've got several pages as well as a group. There's the group Psychic Stories with Hallie Elise, and you have the opportunity to share your personal experiences with psychic phenomena and get feedback and interact with other people. We have HallieElise.com, which will give information that varies anywhere from, I'll say, holistic events to things that have to do with inspiration to spirituality and back again. And of course, there's psychic phenomena kind of interwoven in that. As well, we have the Psychic Gallery. It's got its own page on Facebook, and there's Twitter. You can find me at Psychic Hallie E. And of course, LinkedIn, you can find me. So if you are on any of those social medias and you'd like to interact, please feel free. The website address is HallieElise.com. Really easy. And even if you misspell it, if you go on Google, from what I understand, I am somewhere up there in the ratings. So I am on the first page. That's what I was told by the SEO guy. And for those of you who are wondering, SEO, that's the search engine optimization. Anyways, I thank you so much for tuning in this evening. As I mentioned before, Tracy Marks will be on again in just a moment on her show. So stay tuned, and we shall see you next week.
Thank you, Hallie.
My pleasure. We'll see you again. Bye-bye.
Be enchanted and delighted. Connect each week here on WNN for the Hallie Elise Show. Also on Facebook and at HallieElise.com. Thanks for tuning in. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of the station, its staff, management, or sponsors.